Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1466B, and today's date is January 8th, 2018, and the title of the episode is The Old Wag the Dog Distraction Being Used on the Cabal. But why? Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, we've been seeing a lot of stories with Trump and Trump Jr. and Steve Bannon, and it's starting to look like that this is the old wag the dog distraction type of trick where they're trying to keep the corporate media busy with absolutely nothing. And it looks like Bannon and Trump, it looks like they're all part of this. And I think they're going to continue this on until the very, very end, where they can keep the corporate media completely distracted, the cabal completely distracted from what is really going on. And if you notice, the corporate media, they're not really picking up on a lot of what's going on around the world. Now, of course, in the past, they only received the stories that they were supposed to report on from the intelligence community. And most of the time, that did not include anything that was really going on around the world. Of course, if there was something that they needed to report on, they put their spin on it to make it look like it's really happening in the best interest of the United States and the people of the United States and the world. But what we're seeing right now is that things are rapidly breaking down, and there are secret talks, there's secret things going on behind the scenes where the cabal is completely trapped and is now in a corner. Now, what's very interesting, way back we talked about the Bundys and their Bundy ranch, and they were arrested, and again, they were trying to capture their land. They didn't want to give it up. There were protests and stuff, and they were snipers. Well, it looks like the government, they screwed up. They withhold a lot of information. The judge declared a mistrial, and we see right now that there's a huge amount of corruption, there was lies, and there was a lot going on within this case, which we knew from the beginning. Now, the U.S. judge dismissed the criminal case against Cliven Bundy and 3 other men on charges stemming from an armed 2014 standoff with federal law enforcement officers over a cattle grazing rights dispute. Now, remember, they wanted their land. And I think this was attached to other senators that wanted the land for development or some mineral deposits and things like that. But what we're seeing is the judge cited 5 key pieces of information that the prosecutors did not disclose. Records about surveillance and snipers at the Bundy Ranch. Unredacted FBI logs about activity at the ranch in the days around the standoff, threat assessments about the Bundys dating to 2012, and internal affairs reports about the BLM. Now, Navarro methodically laid out her reasoning for about an hour, citing legal standards and case law before delivering her ruling. She said the evidence that was withheld could have been favorable to the accused and could have affected the outcome of the case. Of course it could have. Navarro stopped short of dismissing charges against the 4 men. It is unclear whether the case will be retired because Navarro did not rule whether the mistrial was with or without prejudice. Now, the judge is considering dismissing the case with prejudice and blocking prosecutors from retrying the case. And it looks like she's going to be coming out with a decision very, very soon, maybe even today. Now, very interestingly, out in North Korea, we understand that Moon Jae-in approached North Korea and said, listen, we would like to have talks. And they set up their hotline. And we see that Kim Jong-un, who's comfortable now with his missile program, with his nuclear program, decided to have talks with Moon Jae-in. The thing that people don't understand is that there was a Moon-Putin plan. And this was a path to peace. And, of course, no one really talked about it. We talked about this, about these secret talks that were going on. And this was the plan, the Moon-Putin plan. It's unveiled now. Now, what they did was they were trying to save face with the United States. They tried to make it look like South Korea approached North Korea, which they did. This way, North Korea didn't make the first move. Neither did the United States. And Moon Jae-in said, yes, we will approach them. Now, what was the reasoning behind this? Because the plan, the entire thing around this was to allow North Korea to join the One Belt, One Road system. And President Moon outlined it as a 9 bridges of cooperation linking South Korea to Russia via North Korea. Gas, railroads, ports, electricity, a northern sea route, shipbuilding, jobs, agriculture, fisheries. Something they need. Siberian oil and gas pipelines would be extended to Korea, but North and South, as well as Japan, would have to all agree on this. Both Koreas would be linked up with the vast rail networks of Beijing Belt and Road Initiative, including high-speed rail and the Eurasian Economic Union, which includes the Trans-Siberian Railway. In other words, North Korea would accept the security guarantees of the other countries if they did one thing: if they halted their missile testing and froze their nuclear program. But North Korea said they didn't want to do this because they were afraid of the United States invading, having regime change. So they allowed North Korea to reach a certain point. Kim Jong-un decided, okay, I've reached that point, and now we can have a discussion. So Moon Jae-in reached out to North Korea. North Korea said, okay, let's speak. Moon Jae-in said, okay, during the Winter Olympics, where North Korea is invited and where they might join, we don't want to have military drills. In the beginning, the Cabal said, no, we're having military drills. Then Trump came out and said, okay, we will not have drills during this period of time. What just happened here? Remember the plan. The United States had to stop drills. This is exactly what they just did. Kim Jong-un is no longer pushing the nuclear tests, pushing the missile tests. He's satisfied where he is. And now Russia stepped in with China and invited the United States to join the peace talks. So it looks like the U.S. was invited in, saying North Korea wants to speak. Now remember, going back in time, Tillerson, well, he extended an olive branch or he laid some breadcrumbs saying this is what we should do. Wanted to get feelers on what was going on. The whole plan is starting to take shape right now. Now we have this other issue with Pakistan, where the Trump administration has announced that he's cutting aid to Pakistan. Now remember, Pakistan borders near Afghanistan. Trump has sent in more troops into Afghanistan. Now, a lot of people said, see, we're not getting out of war in Afghanistan. More troops are going there. And of course, the corporate media played this up, thinking that this was the same policy that Obama was following. No, this is not what's happening. Remember, the Bushes made deals with Pakistan, gave aid to Pakistan to get into Afghanistan. There are routes that lead into Afghanistan. This is what the Islamic State and other terrorist groups have been using. The U.S. military has also been using these routes. Pakistan, because the aid was cut, they're shutting down these routes. They're actually shutting down the routes to the terrorist groups. And you have to remember, Pakistan backed the Taliban. The Taliban is not terrorists. These are people of Afghanistan who want their country back. The United States came in and set up a puppet government. And every time people who want their country back and who are willing to fight for their country, they automatically call them terrorists. An example, in Libya, Lebanon, Syria, anyone that, well, forget Syria right now, Libya, Lebanon, Iraq, once they have the puppet government set up, anyone who's against that puppet government is then called a terrorist. They use the word Al-Qaeda because under the U.S. government, they had the right to use drones to strike Al-Qaeda. That's why they called them Al-Qaeda. But they weren't. They were the everyday people of the country. In Ukraine, once the puppet regime was put into place, everyone in the southeast part of Ukraine, in the Donbass area, they were considered terrorists because they weren't going along with the new puppet government. And right now, this is what's happening because they're cutting off everything in Afghanistan. The Islamic State, they'll have no supplies getting to them. The troops that have been sent in there are going after the poppy fields, shutting down the intelligence agency's poppy fields. They're shutting all that down, And I think eventually what's going to happen is that puppet government, I think it's going to fall, because right now they only handle the capital, and the rest of the country is really the Taliban, and there are some pockets of the Islamic State out there and other terrorist groups. And I think what's going to happen here is that puppet regime, it's going to fall. Remember, John Kerry was out there helping the elections out, trying to get the new leader in there so they can sign the bilateral security agreement so we can keep troops in Afghanistan. The only reason Obama was removing the troops from Afghanistan is because President Karzai, who was in power at the time, wouldn't sign the bilateral security agreement, so the U.S. troops had no choice but to leave Afghanistan. But when the new leader was put into place with the help of John Kerry, he automatically signed that agreement, and the troops were able to stay in Afghanistan. So we can see right now the agenda is to get out of Afghanistan, to shut down the Cabal. Actually, it's trapping the Cabal inside of Afghanistan, locking them out, just like it was done in Syria, just like it was done in Iraq. And right now we see this plan that the Cabal had, keeping Afghanistan, is now falling apart. Think about what's happening right now. Their plan to push unrest in Iran and have regime change, done. Because the United States went to the UNSC, presented their case, and guess what? No one decided to even take a look at it. It was rejected. The world said, no, we're not getting involved in another country's internal problems, because this would open a can of worms where all the other Middle Eastern countries would say, well, if they do that to Iran, they can do it to every country. And right now, what the U.S. wanted, what the coalition forces wanted, Saudi, Israel, what they wanted was to go into Iran. They wanted to get involved. But guess what? It didn't work. The Cabal's plan is falling apart right now. And right now, as Trump continually does this, he's using these wag the dog distractions on the corporate media, on the Cabal, to keep them busy with complete nonsense, which is meaningless in what's really going on in the rest of the world. And right now we can see they are losing their power everywhere. What this means is they're going to be desperate. And I wouldn't be surprised that with all these events, can't put a date on it, but with all these events, there's going to be some type of false flag where they're going to create something someplace, and it's going to be big, where they're going to try to get us into war, or they're going to try to do something to push their agenda. And this is what we're looking at. We don't know exactly when. It could be during the Olympics in North Korea, South Korea. It could be out in Ukraine. It could be near Iran. It could be in Pakistan, Afghanistan. It could be in the United States. We don't know, but it's going to be big, whatever they do. It's not going to be some type of regime change. They might try that once again. They might try something else that's small, but they're eventually going to do something that's much, much larger. And this is what we're looking at right now, because we can see that everything is lining up right now. Their backs are against the wall. Their power is being stripped away from them, and they have nothing left at this point, because as these investigations go forth, we're going to find out that there's pedo rings, which we know there are. We're going to find out more people that are involved in sex scandals. We're going to find out where all this money has gone. And once they start following the money trails, like into the Clinton Foundation, the McCain Institute, they start following trails into their Uranium One deal, what they were actually doing in government, things are going to rapidly fall apart for them, and they don't want this to happen. They don't want anyone looking into their business, because once you start looking into their business, you can find out all of this. And this is slowly happening, but it is happening, and I believe they're going to try some gigantic distraction to take all eyes off of that. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.